Hello YouTubers, welcome to yet another video. This time I have a game of my own. I played this game in 2010. I was rated 1800 at the time. My opponent's something in the 1700s. I made this video on request and I will try to explain as much as I thought at the time. I'm black. White started with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6. Now if white plays knight to g5, I really like that opening as black, but I will get into that in another video. d3, choosing the slow move. Bishop c5 is fine, and white castles. Well, now still, and especially back then, I always liked to attack the opponent's king. And since he castled on move 5, I already had idea now what to do. I would try to wreck open the king's side and try to mate him, or win material in another way. d6, threatening the move bishop to g4, which is a bit of an annoyance for white. h3, preventing the move, but on the other hand weakening his king's side already. I play bishop to e6. If he trades, then I'm quite happy because I will strengthening my center, and mostly you see moves like bishop to b3 now, and then the tension will remain for some time. Whatever he takes, I recapture, and as I said before, I have now added control over the squares d5, f6, and have a future open file, half open file for my rook to attack the king on. Knight to g5, not very strong, it's one move attack. It only attacks the undefended pawn on e6, and aside from that, not really much, especially not because the diagonal e8 to h5 can't be exploited because my knight is defending. I'm not sure why, but I played queen d7 then. I think if I have the position now, I would have played queen to e7. There must have been some reasoning behind it, but I don't remember, to be honest. c3, preventing taking some more control over the d4 square. h6, hitting the knight, and not only hitting the knight, but with the idea of a g5, starting a pawn storm against the enemy king. I could have also played the castle to the king's side, but I would keep it a secret or a surprise for as long as possible that my intentions are to attack his king's side. h6 helps in that way. Knight f3, and now g5. Well, you already have the ideas here. Of course, h5 and c4 are coming sometime. Bishop e3. Of course, I won't take, because if I take his bishop, then it's pretty equal. I think I have a slight advantage now. If I would take, he would of course recapture and have the same kind of center that I have. Also, he would I would no longer have a half open file, but it would be an open file with his rook already on it. So I won't do that. Play bishop to b6, and now he takes. Once again, still I'm fine with recapturing with my a-pawn. I now have two ideas, or two open files. I also have the option of attacking him on the queen side later on, because I have a half open file for my rook on a8. Of course, it messes up a bit my potential castle on the king side, but still, I think the black king is fine. I could also still choose to put my king on e7. Knight to h2. Well, I was happy surprised when I saw that move. Probably with the idea to trade knights or something like that. Knight to g4, I thought. I was fine with the entire concept. Queen f7. Of course, you should always be aware when putting your queen on the same file as enemy rook. However, moves as f4 are quite not possible because of my added control of f4 by 2 pawns. Queen f3. Of course, good move. for a large way stopping my ideas here. I should have played h5 now, keeping to the same idea. This would weaken his knight even further, because he can't play knight to c4 anymore. Next move, I can put my king on d7 or castle, as I intended earlier, and a future g4 is still possible, especially with another rook standing on g8. I did not move h5, but I played my knight to h5, offered trading of the queens, which is not really particularly strong. Perhaps I had the idea of placing my knight to f4 and then later making some havoc, but I'm not quite sure about that. He takes the queen, happy to lessen my attacking potential. I recapture. g3 now, preventing knight to f4, and this is one of those moments in which you have to be realistic. My knight on h5 is not good placed at all, so I put it back to f6. If you look at the position right now, you see a lot of coloring. All the green squares are the squares on which my knights could move if they wanted to. The red squares are the squares his knights can move, and of course the yellow square can be occupied by either his or my knight. This illustrates that I'm pretty well out of the opening. I think black is a little bit better here, as you can see. At this very moment I have lots more mobility. My knights are lots more mobile, while one of his knights still is on its starting square and one is just oddly placed. However, mobility by itself is not going to win anything, so we need plan. He played, of course, knight to d2, putting his knight on a better square. King e7, for any future ideas that his f-pawn would take one of my pawns and give me a check. Also, the king is just safer on e7 and more central. a3. On a2, the pawn needed a babysitter, because earlier I took with my a pawn towards b6. a3 is meant to free the pawn of its babysitting task. Knight to d7. As I told earlier, higher mobility of course is not going to win by itself, so I have to undertake some action. The idea behind knight d7 is of course to move knight c5, but the higher purpose behind it is not only to put my knight on the better square, but also to weaken his pawn structure more. As you can see, he cannot really prevent my knight moving to c5, and there it will be attacking d3, and that leaves the initiative to me. He plays the move b4, which I qualify as a mistake. Of course it prevents the move I was planning to do, knight c5, but it adds the pawn on a3 as a permanent weakness, of a pretty permanent weakness. It's now a new target for me. Immediately I play rook to a4. The idea behind rook to a4 is locking the pawn on a3, and now I will bite in it and not let go unless he really will make me to. Another move which would be possible would be b5. I think that's a little bit better, but I was over enthusiastic and played rook a4. Rook a2. Of course he sees my next move is going to double the rooks, so he needs another defender. I double the rooks, attacking the pawn once more. He defends the pawn once more. Now I come with knight to e7, a7, sorry. And the idea is of course to play my knight to b5, which forks two pawns, undefended c3, and then 3 times attacked a3. Now he plays c4, once again preventing that my knight can go to the intended square, but once again not a good move. Now I have knight to c6. Knight to e6 of course also had the idea, potentially had the idea of knight to d4 and then to b3, hitting the rook on a1, but it's also immediately attacking the b4 pawn. Of Of course, if it take, he cannot recapture because then he would lose the rook on a2. Knight to b1. Well, it adds a defender for the moment to a3, but its true intention is to place it on c3, which will chase away the rook, but he's all too late. Knight to b, knight takes b4. If he would take, I would take, so he can't. He plays knight c3, and well, to be honest, it already is all over now. I take the rook, he takes my rook, we take each other's knights, and now you can see the weakness of his entire piece placement and his pawn structure. I play knight to c5, and you see his knight on h2 still is not really mobile, because he had to respond to my threats, and there is not a thing he can do to save his pawn. Of course, rook to d2 would save it for a while, but I would immediately capture the pawn on a3, and well, I would continue attacking. He plays f4, we take, he captures, we take, knight to g4. It's all played. I will take d3, and you can see that white's pawns, though he has 4 left, all of them are targets from now on. He takes my pawn on h6. After rook takes c4, h4, he has to do something. f3, rook to d2, attacking the knight. Now I play the move f2 check, and here he resigned because there is nothing he can do that prevents the pawn of moving to the final square. Let's say king g2, and I have rook c1. Well, he has to take it. This is not a happy position to finish for white. There is a better move. Instead of f2, rook c1 check, pushes away the king, and after king h2, then of course f2 even is stronger because you don't lose the knight. He has to play rook takes, take, and this is of course better. However, pawn to f2 check was good enough. So this is my first game. Explained what happens here. In the next game I will give you some more calculations and variations. Thank you for now, and have a good day. Bye bye.